Welcome to the Magic in the Cloud podcast, where exceptional visionaries reveal the personal journeys behind their remarkable success. This is a conversation with leaders who've transformed industries by navigating pivotal moments, making bold decisions, and cultivating extraordinary teams. We explore the turning points that define their careers, those instances where intuition met strategy and everything changed. It's an intimate look at the leadership philosophies that drive revolutionary outcomes, with cloud solutions as the quiet enabler. Here are your hosts, Joseph Griffith and Ryan Golombeski.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Magic in the Cloud. My guest today, this guy took a path that most people in tech would never expect. He started with a communications degree. He did PR for a professional football team and then eventually landed in Salesforce leadership. His story is just an amazing perspective on staying open and available, saying yes to the unexpected, and looking to turn every conversation into a stepping stone for the rest of his career and in ways in which he can help others. You're definitely going to want to hear this. And with that, everybody, welcome to my guest, Christian Belko. Christian, thanks for jumping on today.
Yeah, Joe, thanks for having me.
So in my intro, I talked about, I guess we can call it a pivot, but you made a pivot. You were in PR, communication, you're working for a sports team. That all sounds awesome. And somewhere around 2010, you shifted towards tech. What was the moment, or describe the moments, conversations that help you make that transition, take that leap?
Yeah, I mean, I did a variety of jobs coming out of college. As you said, I interned with the professional football team. I worked as a business development representative for an automotive training school and got to drive a tractor trailer. Worked as a sales guy for some education companies. And then really, I kind of was in the boat a lot of people were in 2008, where I was laid off. And I was looking for an opportunity to, figure out what my next step was going to be. Had a chance to join an organization where I came in, learned a lot about sales and their sales processes. And then, like you mentioned, around 2010, we pivoted to this tool that nobody knew in my company, but everybody wanted to learn, that was called Salesforce. And I was a good sales rep. I was putting everything in the systems and I was doing everything they showed us in the training on how to use this Salesforce. So they said, hey, Christian, you're doing a great job. Can you show the rest of the team what you're doing? We like exactly what you're doing, and this is what we want to model it on. So I did that. I just showed people, hey, here's how you do this easily. Here's how you can fill these things out quickly. Here's how I plan my day with it. Eventually, my manager was seeing all the great stuff we were doing as a team and said, hey, Christian, can you build reports so I can see the metrics and the things that your team is tracking against? If you're ever in a position, by the way, in your career where your manager is asking for you to come up with the reports to make you look good, you're in a pretty good spot. So
yeah, for sure.
Started doing that. And, come the end of the quarter, we were the top performing team in the pilot for everything that we were doing with this Salesforce tool. So at our regional meeting, they asked me to kind of train a room of about 200 people in everything we were doing to be successful, talk about our wins. I had a chance to do this now in front of an executive leadership team. And I didn't know. I was just kind of doing these things that they had showed us and just having a lot of success. And after that was over, they came up to me and they said, Christian, we appreciate everything that you've done, but we really think you'd be good for us to be you're a Salesforce administrator. Do you want to take the job? And I was like, sure. What's a Salesforce administrator? Like, I had no idea what Salesforce was back in 2010. I started by literally going to the bookstore, which, is antiquated, and I bought Salesforce for Dummies, and I read it cover to cover. And I started out my journey that way. There was no Trailhead. There's a couple like online blogs, but really it was a matter of learning from, just what knowledge you could get. I joined some user groups. I met some fabulous people there who helped me, figure things out. I heard about getting certified in Salesforce. I was like, well, I read the book Salesforce for Dummies, I should be good. I took my first exam, failed it miserably, didn't have any clue as to the depth of everything. 6 months later, came back after I got some more studying, some more practical experience, attended some of those user group meetings that you hear about now, and I passed it. And that started me off on the journey from 2010 to today, right? As far as for, taking advantage of something I had no idea that was even an industry when I graduated from college, and making the most of it. And I draw a lot of parallels on that today, where we are in technology, right? There's a lot of people that are trying to figure out what they want to do in their career. There are industries that are probably coming in the next, 5, 10, 15 years, and some even now that, you didn't go to school for, you didn't get a background in. You could potentially become a master if you just open the door and be willing to try new things as you go forward.
There's a couple of really good pieces in there. Number one, right before we started the call, I was telling you I was down at the local college. Whether you're 20 or whatever you were back then in 2010, whatever age you are, where you are in your career, number one is always being receptive to new opportunities.
Yes.
I mean, at some point, we could probably do a whole session on what you learn from driving a tractor trailer. I got to imagine there's all kinds of cool things you learn from that, right? I think that's number one. I think number two is self-taught, right? As much as you want to look for employers or opportunities where you can learn from them, I think one thing that you've done, and you and I both know that's the Salesforce ecosystem does, is they try and reduce, mitigate, or pull away the barriers to entry. Like, for example, except for your time, the cost to be certified is nothing really compared to other environments. So great lesson learned in, if it's something you want to aspire to, don't sit back and wait for somebody to come spoon feed you all this. Go out and take the initiative. I think that's a great lesson learned for people who are younger and for people who are a little older and maybe thinking like, hey, I might want to do something else.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you're just starting out or a career pivot. It could just be for, education, just to learn new things. I've learned so many things in the Salesforce space by just having what I like to call a learner's mindset and really not figuring out like everything all at once. But one thing that I try to use a lot, Joe, is, trying to understand what the next step is. Like, what is the next step that I have to get to, being what career I want to go to, or what certification I want to do, or what platform I want to learn, or what technology there is out there. You don't have to learn it all in one day. I know a lot of companies throw like training courses, and LinkedIn's full of people who want to throw out guides and paid courses. Just learn the next step. Just take it one day at a time. Make sure you're moving forward, and that's going to help you greatly in your career.
Yeah. When we talk about leadership, I know that to me, that's a big word, and it presents itself in a couple of different ways. When you think about Salesforce leadership, how do you define that, especially when you're responsible for so many other people?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of facets to my role as a leader. I manage people on my team, and some of them are younger that are still building their skills up. I manage consulting partners who do some different work for us. I manage and work with our internal stakeholders and kind of look at it through that lens of making sure that they have the things they need to do on a business basis. I really use a practice that I like around leadership called servant leadership, which helps me to know that my customers are what's important. I don't want to serve them, right? Like, for us to have a great relationship, be it, the people on my team, my consulting partners, my internal stakeholders, other people I work with, you got to have a servant leadership mindset in that you're trying to look out for their interests. You're trying to, connect people to the right opportunities or the right learnings or the right skills they need. And for our business to make sure they're supported. I always tell my stakeholders on a daily basis, your job is hard enough on a daily basis, not to mention what you have to do with the technology. So if there are things that I can do to make the technology quicker, faster, better, or things that I can improve to make things easier for your teams, like those are the things that I want to do. I don't want to be a layer of complexity on top of an already challenging work environment. And at my business, we really make sure that we try to support our stakeholders, both our internal stakeholders as well as our external people who use our products.
Yeah, and for me, as a bit on the user side over the years, I like to try and use the word frictionless. So how do you make it so that it facilitates my day and contributes to my day, not gets in the way, which, we hear all the time. When you talk about implementations of Salesforce and Salesforce projects, what do you see as the one or two most common mistakes that are made that contribute to the experience being less frictionless? Or better yet, I guess, what are the one or two best practices that you'd like to adhere to make sure that the tech is frictionless for your business users?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's lots of different experiences on that, and you could probably do a whole podcast on this topic, but I'll keep it at a 10,000-foot view for the two biggest things that I see. First is really trying to build a solution or build out an implementation in Salesforce around the technology without understanding the process. So many times people go in and they want to throw out, offerings that Salesforce has, or, technology that integrates with Salesforce, or all these different cool tech things that have, pay as you go licenses or per user per month licenses, when really you need to stop and figure out what the business process is first, right? If, I can solve a problem with technology, that doesn't solve my business problem. And users go to look at it and they have lots of different issues with it. So I like to come from a process first mindset before the technology. What's great when you do that is you're talking to people about the way they work and the way that they've done things on a daily basis, leaving technology out of it, right? And sometimes, there's different products for different solutions, but it's a matter of making sure that when you look at the process, you're fully baked in and understanding that so you can reference back as you come up with your solution moving forward. The other thing I guess I would talk about when it comes to a Salesforce implementation, and this I guess more is for the implementer side of the house, is really to make sure that you understand the problems that you're trying to solve for. I've worked with a lot of implementation partners in Salesforce. I've been one, I've been a consultant in my career, and I always like to try and not understand or give out all the answers or feature dump, as it's called sometimes, right? I want to make sure that I understand what the problems are that we're trying to solve for. Because if you don't accurately know what problem you're trying to solve for, how can you build a solution toward that using any sort of process or technology, right? So talk to the people about the problems they're having. If you can, there's an old acronym that's been in the Salesforce space for a while, but I really like the acronym SABWA, right? And SABWA stands for Salesforce Administration by Walking Around. So walk around and see how people are using Salesforce. Go for, ride-alongs with people if they're out in the field. Sit in with customer care reps. Go through a journey with a marketer. All these different things you could do help you understand the real problems that people are having, which gets you into how you can do that implementation well.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's coincidental that, this podcast is not about Salesforce. You and I just happen to work in that world. But one of the things that I've seen is when I first got involved maybe 10 years ago, we weren't caught up we were still doing things like requirements definition, requirements gathering, solutioning, throwing out crazy ideas. What do you think about this and all that? Well, all of a sudden it was like, no, this new platform, Salesforce, just out of field. We'll figure it out later. And what I think happened with Salesforce is we now have 20 years of that. And so when you look back at projects, I'm like, well, what happened when you talked to the marketing person and you did the walk around? Like, oh, we didn't do that. We just talked to the boss. Well, what happened when you threw out 3 ideas and, when they shot the 2 down? What did you learn from the 2 that were shot down? Oh, we didn't do that. We just built it. And I'm like, wait, that can't possibly happen in that ecosystem. Like, we were supposed to be the shining star for that, saying, hey, if you just describe what it should look like and why, don't worry, we can build it. But it does feel to me like we skipped over that, and now we're paying the price for that a little bit. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Joe. I think, whether it's Salesforce or another technology, I've seen the same things in HubSpot. I've seen the same things in Marketing Cloud. I've seen the same things in Microsoft projects, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
more just a matter of, the technology should be the very last thing you're bringing up. Understanding the pain points of the people and the process you do things, regardless of whether you know any technology or not, that's going to help you tremendously in figuring things out. And again, for those people not looking for a technical career, get really good at asking questions, not necessarily having all the answers, because those questions are going to lead you to the answers that you really need to solve for.
And I think, I couldn't agree with you 100%. I appreciate your point of view. And I think you tell me how you feel about this, but I think we're only going with AI and all that, we're going to continue just to go more in that direction. Like I see someone like you probably already can do this, but I think about some people you might be mentoring coming up, walking into the room and that you could see the group's all worried about the tech being able to do the job. And your job is to say, look, I know I work for that side of the house, but I'm here to alleviate your fears. Don't worry about the tech. As you said earlier, I'm here, you tell me what's the business problem we're trying to address. You tell me why it's important. What do you need to know that you're on the right path? And I'll figure out how to get it to you. I would say, how much do you agree with that? How do you feel about that? That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I agree with it. I think, again, when you talk about technology, and AI is a hot button right now, right? A lot of people are worried about AI's impacts and things like that. I think about AI from the perspective, again, of process and problems. The AI is only going to be able to figure out the problems that you're feeding into it or however you're prompting it. And a great AI engineer, whether you have those skills or not, is going to build the right levels of of intelligence around the prompts. But if the users that are trying to use the AI, or even if the AI itself is going to be its own agent or do these different things, it's only going to be as smart as the intelligence that's in there. So when you think about, processes that don't align with one another, or technical silos that don't, talk about data across silos, you're going to build out AI models that really aren't telling the whole story. They're up for potential hallucinations of the data or giving you the wrong insights, which is even worse, right? And I think we're seeing some of those things with some of the technical stories now when they talk about, oh, AI is laying off this number of people because they're thinking the AI can do it. Well, no, actually, after the fact, they built the AI model incorrectly, and you're seeing that, there's definitely a hiring need they need to pick up on. So I think, we're in a brave new world of AI. There's a lot of different things that are going on regardless of the technology platform you're looking at. But the people that can solve business problems, the people that can understand what those problems are and how the best way is to apply them going forward, regardless of the technology, whether it's a legacy tech stack or an AI tech stack, those are the ones who are going to be in demand and be marketable moving forward. There's always going to be a place for people in an AI mindset. It's just going to be a shift from the people that are doing the hands-on day-to-day stuff to the people that are figuring out the problems and working through it. So I don't want people to come out of this thinking that AI is going to take my job and I'm not going to have anything. You're going to have a different job that you're going to need to think through and be more in tune with stakeholders and meeting their expectations and making sure that the processes and the technology are designed around those problems you're uncovering.
Yeah, I should have had you down at Westchester today as my validation guy. These young kids, some of them are, I wouldn't say scared to death. They're not too doomsdayish, but they're not really sure. You and I would have been on the same page. I said to this couple folks, think of it this way. You're coming into the job and they're going to pay as entry level. You're scared to death that AI is going to take up all the entry level openings. So a picture then that they're actually hiring you for a junior job. AI is going to help you be more of a junior. So they're still going to want to pay as entry level. But how do you leverage AI to be more junior, which oftentimes is more interaction with the business, more involved in process, not just working off checklists.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's how people have to see it. You can't just show up and, go in a corner and write code. I do think that eventually is going to go away, or at least it's going to go away as a, let's just say, very lucrative aspect of things. But the more that you can interact with the business, et cetera, we've covered that a couple of times, is the better.
And I'll do you one better, Joe. I want AI to do the things that I don't want to do as a junior, right? So when I was a junior BA and I was first learning things in my career, I used to have to work in Jira, which for those who don't know, that's a project management tool where we log a lot of the work that we're doing. I used to have to go in there and write, 100 stories for all these problems and things that I had. It was time consuming. It didn't really help me. If I could take those same notes that I have and say, hey, from these notes, create a number of different stories in Jira, looking at these different things and making sure they're linked appropriately, that's such a better use of my time as a junior because I can focus on learning more about technology or solving more business problems instead of spending, hours on end logging different stories in the system. So that's an application where you just have to think differently about how you can use these tools moving forward.
Before I move over to a little bit more about you personally, there's something that I like and admire about you, which is you see every conversation, you take a view of the world that every conversation matters and every conversation is a stepping stone to something else. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy there and how you go about trying to impart that on others.
Yeah, when I first started in my career, it was a little challenging for me just trying to network with different people and do different things. I was in a variety of different careers. Like I said, I was interacting with, at some points, pro football players, reporters. At some points, I was interacting with, heads of different car shows and car companies doing things. And going out there and trying to, sell myself or talk about what I could do for myself. It was varying success, usually less often than not. But I kind of went to a session where I learned a lot about being a connector when you go to networking events or when you're meeting people and trying to figure out what you can do to help other people get to their goals. And I really liked that. And I started to adopt that a lot, Joe, as I was going into, more interactions with people and doing different things, because it allowed me to learn that the more I help people, well, now I'm not going into a situation where I'm trying to sell myself or talk about, what I'm doing. It's more a matter of, hey, nice to meet you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. what are you looking to get out of being here today or tonight? And I still use that today, right? Like I'll go to Dreamforce or I'll go to networking events or user groups and I'll just, talk to people and learn about what they're doing. And then, oh, by the way, you know what? Hey, you said you're trying to do this. I worked with a person at this company who did a great job. They did it very fairly. Would you like me to kind of connect you to on LinkedIn so you can talk about it more? That has built so many more bridges and opened so many doors for me in my career because now I'm not looking to go and say what I can get out of it. I'm
Hmm.
looking to see how I can help other people. And if you know anything about people, they love working with people who they can interact with and connect with. And they're going to remember, oh, they introduced me to that person who gave me that answer that I couldn't find in this community. Or they opened the door for me to get a job interview with that company that I wanted. Again, no benefit necessarily directly for me. It takes 5 minutes of my time, but it creates a lifelong friendship and some camaraderie on my business end to be able to, build good relationships and have a really good network of people now that I can reach out to. But most importantly, it takes the pressure off, right? I'm never going to an event where I'm looking to get something out of it. I'm going to see who I can meet, what I can learn from them, and maybe in the future they can help me. That's great. I already have a warm connection and a bridge built moving forward. So it's not so much figuring out, what step you're in, it's figuring out what's the next step, like I said earlier, that you need to.
Yeah, I think your servant mentality shows there again. And two things stand out about making those connections. Number one, and you and I have done this forever. Most people are afraid to go to networking events because most people they talk to have selfish motivations. I
Exactly.
need a job. I need this. So you don't want to go someplace where you're going to be asked, can you do me a favor? Can you do me a favor? Can you do me a favor? You and I both know that's where people just fall all over you with that. So that's number one is to tell people, hey, when you go to an event, don't worry about what you need, worry about what they need. And number two is you reminded me of a talk I had to do in college. It was my final exam, public speaking class.
Hmm.
And I did a talk on why people like each other.
Mm, okay.
And the number one thing that directly correlated to you liking someone is the degree to which they know that you have an interest in like them.
Makes a lot of sense.
So you can you imagine leaving and going, how was it tonight? Like, wow, that Christian guy, he was really interested in my background. He was really interested in this and he seemed to want to connect me. I really like him. And you're like, well, why do I like him? Like, well, because human nature that's the number one thing, man. The degree to which you know they like you increases or impacts how you like them. That's absolutely the way it is. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's a skill set that goes cross age groups, right? I think people who are younger can benefit from that. And I think people who are older can benefit from that. And you don't even have to be nervous anymore about knowing what you want. You don't have to prepare to have your 10 answers to what you need. Just
Yeah.
put that aside. I think that's awesome, Mel. Thanks for sharing that, Christian.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes all the pressure off you, right? Now you're going out
Yeah.
to an event where you're not looking to
Yeah.
get something out of it, but you might
Yeah.
uncover, five new business relationships or one new friendship because of somebody that you were able to help out. And again, it's not saying that there's not a time and a place for you to be able to find those things, but I'd much rather talk to somebody that I met at an event and helped out. And maybe they can help me out in some areas versus, going up to somebody cold I've never met before and asking them for, their time, their commitment, their resources. We understand that people are busy, but they're a lot more willing to open the door and talk with you if you can help them either make a connection or find a resource or answer a question. Those are all just great things. You can look at it and make you a lot less nervous. So for the younger folks listening to this, remember, it's not so much about what you need. It's more a matter of what can you give to other people that you'll get back tenfold over time.
Well said, man. Well said. Let's shift gears to a little bit more about you personally. So you're born in South Jersey. You moved all around and then you settled in Philly area. Describe for my audience, what was it like growing up and how did all that shape you?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Jersey. For those in the Blackwood area, spent a lot of my younger years over there. My dad was a realtor, so we moved around to a lot of different houses based on the deals we could get. And then we had a lot of folks in the family who did a lot of like handiwork and fixing things up. So we'd buy a little bit more of a rundown house, we'd fix it up, we'd make it beautiful, and then we'd kind of pivot and go to the next one. So growing up was great because I got to see my dad kind of help me learn a lot of different things about finding things at lower value and bringing them up in price. And then on my mom's side, my mom was a whiz at kind of, managing and doing a lot of different things within the house, right? So she was good about, making sure we had all the right groceries, even for, a growing kid who was going through all the different things. My sister and I were blessed with a lot of different opportunities that maybe other folks didn't have when they were younger, but it helped us kind of focus on two things that we knew we needed to do. One, and this is something I try to do every day, is just be nice to people, right? It doesn't cost you anything just to be a nice, caring, generous person. And I think that helps, not only in business, but just in your social relationships. The other is really appreciating the value of working smarter, but not necessarily harder, because there's a lot of people that go out there and work hard on a daily basis, and more power to you if you're one of those people listening to this. But the people who work smarter are taking advantage of those opportunities that are coming from you with some of the things that we've talked about, and really thinking about what's a better way I can do this, where it can be faster or cheaper or less time consuming to be able to get these things done. Both my, sister and I learned that from a very young age from my mom and dad, and kind of went from there. I took that, went to school in Philly. I wanted to be close enough where I could still come home on the weekends and bring laundry to do at home, but far enough away where, the folks wouldn't pop in if I was involved in a fraternity event or something like that. So it was good balance and appreciation of working in a city. I'd lived in the suburbs in South Jersey for a while, got used to suburban culture. After living in a city and getting to experience a lot of the, museums and shows and everything else there, it was something where it was important for me to be in that, different type of environment. Moved around a lot to some other different places around the country, but like you said, wind up settling out here in the Philly suburbs, and I love it. When I talk about, where I live today, it's a good area for me to, really walk around and do a lot of different things in town, but I'm also close enough where I can walk to the train and take that into the city, or even take it all the way up to New York City if I wanted to. So having those opportunities, and then, using that servant mindset, not only in my professional life, but in my personal life, right? Like reaching out to
Hmm.
my neighbors, reaching out to, other folks who live on our block. When we, talk about doing things in a business mindset, you can apply those on the home side as well. When we had all that snow a couple weeks ago, everybody in the community went and we all shoveled everybody's driveways and sidewalks. That way, one person's not doing it, we're doing it all together and knocking them out pretty quick, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So, I mean, those are just things that as you, take those professional mindset things and take them into a personal level, it's really helped me grow and appreciate the area that I live in and where I am today.
Wow. One of my questions is often about who influenced you growing up. And it sounds very clear like your mom and dad had a tremendous influence on you, and, you're appreciative of that and you're proud of that.
Absolutely.
So I guess my one question then is, have you had a chance to tell your parents thanks?
Not as often as I should. No, I definitely, tell them thank you a lot for the things that they did. But, when you get older, you realize that sometimes you don't get to say thank you as much. So
Yeah.
make an effort when you get older more, because, you have a lot of time, but you might not have as much time as you think. That's how I look at it. So just be appreciative and grateful. And again, going back to what I was saying, just be a nice person. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice, whether it's your parents, or I was lucky enough to have a lot of my grandparents late into my life. I told them, I thank them and I love them all the time.
Yeah. Now I'm glad you did that, man. It's no one ever gets tired of hearing that they're appreciated.
Absolutely.
So you did work for the Philadelphia Eagles, and who wouldn't want to know about that experience? What was it like working for an NFL team, but what made you want to leave?
So I interned, I want to be clear on that, for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I did that as a part of my
So you
public
weren't getting paid a
relations.
lot.
I wasn't getting paid a lot, but I do have a fun story I'll talk about in a little bit. But I did intern with the Eagles, and this was, for those Eagles fans listening to the podcast, this was the first season that they had hired Andy Reid as their head coach, and
Okay.
they drafted
Nice.
Donovan McNabb from Syracuse
Sure.
to be their
Yeah.
starting quarterback. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of buzz around the team, and for those really old folks listening to the call, this was up at Lehigh, right? Lehigh
Yeah. They were
University is
still
where
in
they.
Lehigh. Yeah.
Yep, they were still at Lehigh. They weren't at the new complex, whatever they're calling it in South Philly. But they used to go up there and they'd take a bunch of us to go, work up there. So I interned for them about a month before we went to Lehigh. And then during the summer, I went up and I worked and I lived on campus at Lehigh's, living at Lehigh University, a lot of hills, a lot of fun downtown areas for after work. But I mean, those were 12, 14-hour days. We were getting up before the team. We were going out to the field, making sure the media tents were good, making sure they were all set up. Then we get to sit through practice. We'd, make sure some of the players got over to some of the special fans who were in attendance doing different things. We had an opportunity to, sit and talk with some of the reporters. And that's where I got to learn a little bit more about mass communication, is just, general, sitting under a tent, having a bottle of water with some different folks who were reporting on the team at the time. Got a chance to, do some different fun things up there at the camp that, helped out with the team as well. Having my tech background in school, being a little familiar with, computers. One of the asks I had at the time was to set up a laptop for one of the linemen who tried to offer me a few $100 after I did it. Couldn't take it as
Nice.
an intern, but got him set up and he was pretty happy. And then I went into game days when I got back from camp, right? And the Eagles that first year, I think a lot of people know weren't good. New system, a lot of things going on, but it was at the vet. So I had a chance to, work game days at the vet
Nice.
doing things. And the
Yep.
one day you brought up bringing a poor college student. We didn't get a lot of money for being an intern. We got like a very small stipend. But on game days, sometimes you got picked to do certain jobs. And I got picked to sit and be what's called a spotter at the game. So I worked with the Tampa Bay radio announcer to be his spotter. So as he was calling
So the ball's
plays,
at the 35. It's third and
yes,
10. Okay.
pointing out the
Wow.
number of the player who was on the page and everything like that. And I just thought that was my job for the day. So I was like, hey, this is great. Like, I get to do this. I don't have to walk around on the field. I don't have to be cold. Well, turns out I actually got paid for that. And if you're a poor college student, you get a check for $250 just for one game. That was pretty great. So, good memories of doing those things with the Eagles. I think that, I kind of left that opportunity because one, I didn't at the time really appreciate that it could develop into a career. I looked at it as, hey, you know what? It's an internship and I'm going from there. But two, I think, I kind of held myself back a little bit. And when I go back and think about it, sometimes I was like, hey, if I had, maybe drilled into this a little bit more, or like I said earlier, tried to solve problems for other people or tried to, think through different things creatively, maybe it could have led to something a little bit more. But it was a great experience and I learned a lot for it. And I'm appreciative of having that opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great story, man. I mean, who doesn't want to be in and around and part of that, right? Well, assuming you're a big sports fan.
Yeah, and I mean, you definitely learn how small you are, right? Like I'm a guy, I'm over 6 feet tall. I think I'm a pretty, big guy. You walk up next to a lineman who's 6'8" in full pads, and you feel like you're a small little kid. So, gave you a definite appreciation for the size and speed that some of those guys move at.
100%, man. I remember going to I'm dating myself. I remember going to a show one time. It was Lindros,
Okay,
Chris Gratton, who was a signee, and Mike Mamula
okay,
all in the room.
wow,
And probably at the time, I was, probably a good 30, 40 lighter than I am now. But I'm always viewed as a larger guy. They always stick me with the 6'4", 6'5" guy to play basketball. But when you go up and saw those guys, I got to tell you, as much as you think Lindros was big,
hmm,
Chris Gratton was bigger.
wow, okay,
And Mike Mamula was wider.
okay,
Mamula was wide, man. So I hear you, man. There's athletes, when you're further away, you feel like you'd fit in.
hmm.
But I think once you're on the ground and get super close to them, nah, man, they're going to run you over.
It's a different world. Yeah, I appreciate that I get to watch them on TV now because I wouldn't want to be on the field with any of these
Yeah,
guys.
for sure. Outside of work and Salesforce and all the mentoring and the leadership and the coaching and helping your neighbors and all that good stuff. Outside of work, what does a Christian Belko fun day look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're just talking about things that I do for fun, it's not in front of
Yeah.
a computer, right? Like you see a lot of these people on LinkedIn throw out, hey, in your spare time, you can, learn this coding course over 3 months or do these different things. To me, like that's what work days are for. That's what, the nights after work are for. Well, weekends are my time. So I always try to get away from computer, try to also get away from like phones and tablets the most part. One hobby I've recently got into, I enjoy a lot. I collect football cards. So like I said, I've been a fan of football, so I'll go to a lot of different card shows. I'll haggle with some of the guys. Really, just trying to find players and coaches of different things that I like. Spending time obviously with my wife is something we try to do. We love to travel. So if there's opportunities to travel, in the country or out of the country, we did it. Last year, we went to Puerto Rico as a really great time for anybody who hasn't been, who's thinking about going. Highly recommend it. One of the best places I've ever been.
Nice.
But we also went to the Minnesota State Fair, which is something I never thought I'd do. But I had a blast going to the Minnesota State Fair. They have all kinds of cool stuff up there and just different things that you don't get to see. So if you get to travel, all the people a lot of times think, oh, I have to go overseas or Europe. I have to get a passport. No, just go out to Minnesota or go out to Iowa or go out to, Arizona. Just try something different and be in a new place. Sometimes, we think that, all these personal things that you do have to be these big expensive endeavors. Some can be, like the football cards I do, but the travel you can make very affordable going forward.
Yeah, I think it's a it's something I hear often, but I feel a lot of people don't they don't realize how basic or simple those things can be.
Yeah.
And then what's been a common theme through our discussion today is just go out and try it, right? You don't have to go travel to Minnesota for a week
Hmm.
and hang out there, but you might go there for a long weekend. Go to the state fair. I think you said state fair, right? Go
Yeah,
to the state
Minnesota State.
fair. If it's the middle of baseball season, go to a baseball game on Saturday, and then head back. Take a drive back. I don't know if you drove that or flew that, but I'm guessing the drive is long, but not too long.
Yeah, I mean, we flew that and we found
Flew.
super cheap tickets that were like, I think $250 round trip total for the both of us, right? So it was ridiculously easy. Speaking of a baseball game, while we were out there, we went and saw a Twins game. We bought tickets as the game started for $10 for the
Yeah.
two of us, $10. So, I mean, it's like you can do these things and yeah, you can spend a lot of money, but if you find the right deals and you're passionate about it, you can do things really on the cheap. And we've been to a lot of cities in the US. We've been overseas too, where we spend a little bit more, but there's such a great big world out there. Don't get focused on the myopic, social media and how everybody's perfect on Facebook and Instagram, or everybody is humble bragging on LinkedIn, right? Go live your life and be your own person. If there's one thing I hope that your listeners get out of this, Joe, it's just try something, right? Be a generalist, right? You don't have to be a specialist. You can be specialized in different things that you do for work, but be a generalist in life and don't be afraid to try something. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again, but at least you gave it a shot and you saw what it is moving forward.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough for being on the show today, because I know that going out and trying stuff, I mean, that's been the theme, right? Whether it's hobbies, whether it's for fun, whether it's with your wife, whether it's on your own, whether it's at work, with a career, just go ahead and give it a shot, right? You can only gain experience and learn from it and all that. And I think you've really represented well that journey that you've been on these past few years. Final question, I guess, is, and you don't strike me as a guy, it's not so much about regrets. It's about, hey, if you're looking back at your younger self and you could give yourself one or two pieces of advice on what you might do a little bit differently, what comes to mind for you there?
Yeah, I think this is one that I hope resonates with a lot of your listeners, Joe. But to me, I would say the biggest regret I have is when I was younger, especially in my teens and my early to mid 20s, I worried a lot about what other people thought of
Mm.
me.
Yep.
Specifically, like, how I, looked or how I acted or what I had as far as stuff wise and things like that. And the most freeing moment I've had in my life is when I realized that I really care that people have a good opinion of me, but not that I care about what they think of me, right? If I'm doing the things like we talked about today, if I'm trying stuff that's new, if I'm being a servant leader, if I'm looking to lead from a place of how can I help you versus how can I help me, I think all of those things are going to generate in a way where I put out a persona that I'm happy with. So I'm not really worried about what people think about me at the end of the day. I just know I'm going to continue to do things and build off the standards that I set for myself. And whatever else people think about me, that's great, but it doesn't bother me. So if I'm going to go out of the house and I'm going to wear a t-shirt and sweatpants as I go to pick things up, I'm not worried that I have to be dressed to the nines to go to the store to do it. Or if I'm just going to be nice and helping people at a networking event, I'm not going to worry about the fact that, I didn't necessarily get what I went there for. I got some other cool things that I got out of it that's really helpful that may pay itself back over time. It may not. But at the end of the day, I'm very happy with how I conduct myself and what I bring to the table. And I would hope that your listeners learn that the younger they learn that other people are too busy figuring out their lives to care about what you do with yours, that will make them exponentially be able to realize what they can do or even what they want to focus on as a part of their lives moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. As much as I think folks who listen to the show who are older can always appreciate that advice, I'm going to make sure that once we go live, I push this podcast back to my friends. I think I mentioned I'm helping the folks at Westchester. And I think I interviewed 10 young adults today. And I would say two of them specifically said, after my 4 years here, I said, what's one thing you would change? And two of them said, I would stop worrying from freshman year what other people thought of me or expected of me that way. So I'm going to go back and say, hey, go watch this podcast, because here's a guy that's going to it's going to validate that for you. But it's not how a lot of us are raised, right? A lot of us are raised to have external validation rate higher than internal. And I think at times it's a hard shift for people to make.
It's a hard shift for people to make, but it's a freeing one, right? Because once you make
100%,
that
dude.
shift and you make that mindset shift, you realize that you can focus on the people you care about more, or the things you enjoy more, or spending time the way you want to more, instead of being caught up in the cycle of trying to keep up with everybody else, right? When you don't care what's going on the hamster wheel, you're able to go in so many other places that the wheel never gets you to.
100%, dude. Like, I can't tell you enough. People perceive that I was never like that, but I got to tell you, I grew up scared to death. I would hang up this conversation and go, well, I think Christian enjoyed talking to me today. I wonder if next time I see him, he'll really like me the same amount he did this time. Like, I was overwhelmed with that, even though externally I came across very confident. And if I had to give that advice back to other folks, I'm like, listen, man, don't wait till you're old enough to actually convince yourself, well, maybe I just don't give a crap anymore. Like, that is not a good enough reason to stop worrying. You got to get yourself to a place where you're like you said, did I try my best today? Did I act with integrity? Did I do what I said I was going to do? Did I raise my hand when I made a mistake? Did I have a servant first attitude? If you could do all that, you need to feel good about yourself, man, because that's all you can ask of just about anybody, right?
Absolutely. If you're happy with yourself at the end of the day, then you're doing something right.
Yeah, man. This was awesome. Tell my guests where and how they can track you down if they need to.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach out to me, linkedin.com/Christian Belko. I don't post a lot on there, so I'm not going to flood your feed. But when I do post, it's usually relevant stuff. You can also find me at my company. So my company, if you want to learn a little bit more about it, Wedgwood Pharmacy, we're the largest provider of animal health products in the U.S. We have a lot of different compounds and things out there for pets. And again, it's a job that goes back to my passion. It's something that I'm passionate about, and kind of how we do and work with things in the company there. And you can also find me in the Salesforce user groups in the Philly area. Looking forward to some upcoming events where happy to meet people at, including Mid-Atlantic Dreamin', which I'll throw a plug out for on May 5th.
Nice. Yeah, I think there's a good chance I'll see you down there. That's great.
Sounds great.
Christian, thank you so much. My audience is going to love this. I mean, it's been very insightful. I appreciate you being willing to share, what makes you tick, which is really the whole purpose of the podcast. So thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.
And this brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
Magic in the Cloud podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.